how weird that of all the people, Trump was actually less of a warmonger than everybody else.
Yeah.
And
but wait, does that still mean a warmonger?
And he said he was going to, but guess what it still means? Still means he's a war. So here he is giving a speech to the Republican Jewish Committee headquarters in Las Vegas, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Sheldon Adelson Republicans.
And so a lot of people said that, well, let me play this video and then we'll get to it. So if you thought that Donald Trump was going to be the savior to stop World War III, watch this.
When I'm back in the White House, the United States will stand with Israel all the way, 100%, without hesitation, without qualification, and without any apology. We're not going to be apologizing. We won't be apologizing. We're not going to be apologizing.
Apologize.
We will fully support the Israelis in their mission to ensure that Hamas is decimated and these atrocities will be avenged. They will be avenged. In many ways, they'll be avenged.
Yeah.
I think even beyond what you're thinking about. The wars have to be finished oftentimes before the peace. And if you don't do the wars, the peace doesn't happen. And if you're not going to be tough and ruthless like they are, it's not going to happen. We have to stop it. We have to end it once and for all. After decades of broken promises by past leaders, I kept my promise, recognized Israel's eternal capital, and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. I actually got the building built, too. Got it built. They've been talking about that for a long time, Miriam. That's what you and that great man, that's what you wanted, right?
Who's that, Adelson?
I think Sheldon Adelson.
Yeah, it's Vegas.
And we got it built. You know, we got it built. And it's supposed to cost $2 billion. We got it done for $500,000. I'm proud to be...
Had a discount, Jimmy.
And back in 2014-15, Trump was saying that maybe we should take away our support of Israel. And so what made him flip so quickly? What made him click? A lot of people are saying what made him flip so quickly was that Sheldon Adelson went and made huge donations to him in his campaign.
They called him a great man. That
and they just called him a great man.
Yeah.
And so if you think that Trump was the guy to stop the World War III that's about to happen in the Middle East because Joe Biden is doing exactly what AIPAC wants him to do, exactly what the military-industrial complex wants him to do, and he's being the warmonger of the worst order, and everybody had fingers crossed that Trump would come in and demand a peace and a ceasefire and get the... He's not. So when people ask, like over on other YouTube shows, hey, what's Israel's endgame? Israel's endgame is to wipe out the Palestinians and take their land. That's why they've been funding Hamas since at least 2006. So that's why in 2019, Benjamin Netanyahu said, if you believe in Israel and you support Israel, you have to fund Hamas. Why do you have to fund Hamas?
To prevent a Palestinian state, he said.
That's right. To prevent how does that prevent a Palestinian state? Because you split the Palestinians, you have the religious right-wingers, hardliners, and you have the secular ones, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and you force them into do a prison break, which is what Hamas did. And then you say that, oh, they're terrorists, so now we can go in and slaughter everybody in Palestine because they're hiding under churches and hospitals and schools. So we got to bomb churches, hospitals, and schools, and we got to slaughter everybody because that's where Hamas is. And meanwhile, they don't tell you, oh, that the Hamas that we've been funding, that we exactly wanted to have be a strong organization so we could then use them as the pretext to go in and wipe out the Palestinians. And that's what's happening. And so people thought, a lot of people were hoping that Trump would be the guy to come in and demand peace, just like he said he would do in Ukraine, that he would end the fighting in 24 hours. And that's what everybody wants to, that's what all sane, rational people want to hear. That's not what the military-industrial complex wants to hear. That's not what the oligarchy wants to hear. That's not what Wall Street wants to hear. That's not what the fossil fuel companies want to hear. But that's not what NATO wants to hear. But that is what everybody else in the world wants to hear. And so we were hoping that Trump would say the same thing about World War III that's happening in the Middle East right now. They're going to start, they're already bombing Syria, and they want to start bombing Iran. And they've said, oh, okay, so if Iran or Iran's proxies attack any of our American troops that we are now sending to Israel, if their proxies attack us, we're going to look at that as a provocation from Iran, and we're going to attack Iran. Yeah. So they've been wanting to attack Iran since at least 2001. So do you remember what Wesley Clark, General Wesley Clark, after 2001, he went to the Pentagon, and the guy says, get this, they've got a plan to invade 7 countries: Libya, Iraq, Iran, Syria. What were the other ones? I can't even remember. But guess what? We did all of them.
Yeah, you're welcome, by the way, guys.
Except Iran. We haven't done Iran yet.
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan. That's right. Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran, the Sudan.
What
and one more.
What are we, Cecil Rhodes over here?
And they've done them. And the last one on the list is Iran. And now they're figuring out a way to do Iran. And so now they're going to use that so now they're using Hamas as a pretext to start World War III in Iran.
Yeah.
And if everybody thought that Trump was going to be the peacemaker, Trump is the rational guy. Trump ran in 2015 and 16. He ran on pulling us out of these stupid wars in the Middle East and investing that money back home. And that's why a lot of people voted for him. A lot of people who were Bernie Sanders supporters, their second choice was Donald Trump. A lot of them. And if you were hoping that, well, now it's over. Now you know that's not real. Yeah. And now some people are saying that, oh, no, Donald Trump is just saying that because it's in front of a bunch of Jewish people and they're his donors. Yeah, well, that's why he moved the embassy, because Sheldon Adelson, even though every president has actually promised that since at least Bill Clinton has promised to move the embassy, they would just not move it, and they would give 6 months extensions. They kept doing that. We're going to hold off for 6 more months. Even Barack Obama said he was going to do that. But Trump actually did do it because Sheldon Adelson gave him that money. And so Trump is just revealing that he doesn't have a real ideology. He's not a real peace candidate. He doesn't have a real ideology. Remember, he knocked off
Soleimani.
Soleimani, the general of Iran, who was actually helping us fight ISIS and fight Al Qaeda.
But we need them to fight against Assad.
But we were in bed with ISIS and Al Qaeda, the people who attacked us on 9/11. We were funding them. The CIA was funding them in Syria. Why? Because they wanted to put a pipeline through Syria.
John McCain took his picture with him.
That's right.
With ISIS.
And now we're in bed with literal Nazis in Ukraine. Why? Because we want to stop the pipeline from Russia to Germany. That's why. And we want to bleed Russia and Germany at the same time. We don't want to have to fight against this economic power. We want economic hegemony and imperialism, and that's what the West wants, and that's what they're getting. And so if you thought that Donald Trump was going to be the savior, he was going to be the sane one, just like he said he was in 2016, and he told Jeb Bush that your brother got us into a stupid war. Well, here he is. He can't wait to start another stupid war.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you like how he goes, we're gonna be a avengement. He kept saying that. So that's why he's not acceptable. It's because the other ones are like, no, we kind of feel bad for the people that are gonna get killed, but they got to do what they got to do.
He's like, no. He's like, no, vengeance. Yeah. We're gonna go for vengeance. The thing that they preach against in the Bible. We're actually going to do. That's what we're all about. We're about the worst instincts in human beings. Not that Joe Biden also isn't, and the Democrats are, but I thought that he was going to go against the deep state. I thought that Donald Trump's whole thing was, I'm not a warmonger. I'm pushing back against the deep state. Even though he did ramp up the drone war, even higher than Barack Obama, but he didn't start any new wars. Now it looks like he's itching. Well, he can't wait to go start a new war. Yeah. And again, there are these people who run the country, the billionaire class that also own Donald Trump, care nothing about the United States. They don't care there are no countries. Just like that in that movie Network, there are no countries, there are only companies and the international flow of dollars. And that's what this is all about. You tell me why it took 6 hours for the IDF to respond to a bunch of guys in flip-flops and hang gliders. You tell me. You tell me why they ignored the strong warnings from Egypt and the United States. Why do you think they did that? Why do you think they funded Hamas since 2006? What do you think, as Breaking Points is baffled by, what is the end game of Israel? The end game of Israel is to wipe out the Palestinians and take that land.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there some like they found $1 trillion worth of natural resources, oil and gas off the coast of right
off the Gaza Strip, right
off the Gaza Strip. There it is.
They did.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Better get that invasion going.
You got to get that invasion going.
We're taking the oil. We're taking
we took the oil.
So there it is. So I think there's more to this. Hang on.
The best friend that Israel has ever had. Everybody says, "Are you sure the best friend?"
So I thought Donald Trump would be the guy who would be making fun of this. That Donald Trump would be saying, "Hey, we're not the United States of Israel." I thought that's what he would say.
It's me.
Instead, he's actually saying the exact opposite. We are the United States of Israel. We care more about Israel than we care about people in our own goddamn country. He was president for 4 years. Did he fix homelessness?
No.
Did he raise wages? Did he bring jobs back? Did he do any of that stuff? No. The answer is no. Did he give you health care like he said he would? Remember, he said everybody's going to have health care. Everybody's going to have health care. He said that on 60 Minutes. And they said, how are you going to do it? He goes, I'm going to get it done. I know how to talk to the hospitals. I know how to make deals. I know how to... He didn't do anything. At least he didn't start a new war. And it turns out, son of a bitch, he ended up being the least warmonger we've had as a president in my lifetime. But here he is. He's trying to be the biggest warmonger in the world. We're on the precipice of World War III. This is serious shit. And he doesn't, and you hear him, and he doesn't care. So everybody who's a Trumper, and the reason why they're a Trumper, because they're anti-interventionists, and you thought Donald Trump was an anti-interventionist, he's more about Israel than he is the United States.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't serve the United States at all. Not at all. And right now, he could actually get to the left of Joe Biden and get all those votes of the people who are pissed off at Joe Biden and the Democrats for what they're allowing to happen and actually supporting and funding right now in Palestine. He could get those votes. He doesn't give a shit. So now what we have a choice between a guy who's a genocider and a guy who's a genocider. One guy who's a demented genocider and one guy who's a comedic genocider. So this is what we're left with. And do you see why Cornel West's campaign is such a huge failure? Because he's the only one who's right on this issue, and he's right on Ukraine. Bobby Kennedy gets Ukraine right, and he totally shits the bed on this. The other World War III or World War IV. And he got it right, and he doesn't care. Cornel West does not care. He's not interested in running for president. He's not interested in getting people's votes. He's not interested in getting my vote. He's not interested in getting the people who watch the show vote. He doesn't care about any of it. He's just an academic who seems like he's dicking around. And that's why it's such a heartbreak for me. And that's why I was so invested in trying to beat him over the head to wake up and start running a real campaign. But he is not interested in that whatsoever. He's still out there pretending that Peter Dow isn't a fucking infiltrator. He's out there calling him precious and brother and worried about his PTSD. Peter Dow's so worried about his PTSD, he's online 24/7, smearing people again, warring with them, and attacking all his critics in underhanded bullshit ways and playing the race card. Is that what his doctor recommended he do, Peter Dow? To treat your PTSD, you should stay on Twitter all day and call people names. And Cornel West is running cover for Peter Dow, who just tanked his campaign, and it seems like Cornel West wanted him to tank his campaign.
Obviously,
it's all bullshit. And so we got nobody. We got nobody. So all we got is ourselves. And there's no way. There were millions of people in the street to stop the Iraq war. And what did it do? Nothing. And you know why? Because nobody ever held those people accountable. You know why nobody ever held those people accountable? Because we got pretty boy, smooth-talking Barack Obama to give a pass to all those people. He never prosecuted any of those war criminals. You know why? Because Barack Obama's a war criminal. That's why. He was a bigger war criminal than George Bush. He did war crimes in Libya, did war crimes in Afghanistan for 20 years, did war crimes in Syria. He had a kill list where he would extrajudicially kill Americans without a trial. Kids, he would kill American children without a trial. That's who Barack Obama is. That's why. It's a uniparty, baby. And Donald Trump is not the guy. turns out he's not the guy. So if you want to avoid World War III or IV, he's not the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we go from here? I don't know where we go from here, but we need a real leader, or we need some kind of grassroots movement that could shut this down. I don't know. The only template I could think of was the truckers in Canada, and how the truckers in Canada really caused a headache for capitalism up in Canada, eh? And that's the only thing that does it, if you cause a headache for capitalism. Let me throw it over to Kurt and Craig. What do you have to... Let me finish this video, and then I'll throw it to Kurt and Craig.
That Israel's ever had. And with 4 more years, I will defend America, and I will defend Western civilization from the barbarians and savages and fascists that you see right now trying to do harm to our beautiful Israel. I'm not going to let that happen. This is a strange thing that's happening in our country. While in office, I took the strongest action of any president.
So he doesn't even make the distinction between Hamas and Palestinians. He's just calling them barbarians, because the last racism you can do openly, and the Democrats and Republicans all do it, is Arab racism. You can still do that. Do it on Bill Maher's show every Friday.
You better do that.
They do it at him and Sam Harris. Do it on Bill. They do it everywhere. So that's the last people you can still be racist against, is the Arabs. Isn't that fantastic?
Russians do.
What's that?
I can be racist against
Russians more xenophobia, right?
I like to think of them as a separate race.
You like to think of Russians, but that would be considered xenophobia. So that's what he doesn't even make the distinction. At least you should give lip service to, we have to go after Hamas and not the good people of Palestine. He doesn't even do that.
At the Sheldon Adelson thing, he's got to say exactly what he's saying. That's BB talk.
That's exactly right.
BB talk.
Yeah.
And so some people will say, well, Jimmy, he's just saying that to his donors. He doesn't really mean that. That's just campaign rhetoric. When he ran for president in 2016, he didn't say this shit. When he ran for president in 2016, when he was campaigning, he smacked down Jeb Bush and his brother and the entire Republican and Democrat establishment, and the country cheered for him when he did that. It was exciting.
It wasn't about Israel, though.
It was about the Iraq War. It was about the Middle East.
Specialist?
That's right. So
what do you say? Our beautiful Israel?
Our beautiful Israel.
Our best boy.
So what he's saying there is that we are the United States of Israel.
51st state,
baby. The fuck do we care about what happens? How about it's none of our business? How'd you ever think about that?
But they're the only democracy in the Middle East.
And you know why they're the only democracy in the Middle East? Because we knocked off all the other democracies so we could steal their oil. They never. That's the second part of that sentence. They never finished.
Yeah, Iran was a democracy. Yeah, better than what they have now.
Iran was a great democracy.
The only thing they did was not give us their shit.
So we overthrew Iran, which was a great democracy, a forward-thinking Western democracy. And what did we do? We installed a puppet who was oppressive to his people, called the Shah. And then the people had enough of that 20 years later. And what does that always do? It pushes them to right-wingers. Just like when the Democrats don't take care of the people at home, it forces people to go to radicals and right-wingers like Donald Trump. No one gives a shit. So if you gave people health care, and if you gave people a living wage, and if you gave people education, and if you gave people infrastructure, they wouldn't be easily radicalized. But when you don't do those things, people get desperate. And that's why people voted for Donald Trump, because they saw the establishment, Democrat and Republican, don't give a shit about them. And now Donald Trump is reinforcing that he doesn't give a shit about the United States. He only cares about power and pleasing AIPAC and his Jewish donors. That's all he cares about. The United States of Israel. That's what this is right here. All right, so let me finish this.
History to combat the vile scourge of anti-Semitism. You know that.
The vile scourge.
I signed a landmark executive order fighting anti-Semitic hate on college campuses and affirming that discrimination against Jewish students will be aggressively punished as a violation of civil rights. And that we didn't have that, if you can believe it.
Now that sounds like, imagine if you put any other name in there. Imagine if you put in Hispanics or Mexicans or Arabs or Syrians or anything. You would go, what's with this woke thing? Who needs, as long as it's about anti-Semitism.
You know what? Is that the thing where they weren't letting them in? They're like, there's too many getting into college.
No.
Like they're doing the Asians.
No, that's not what that is.
It's not affirmative action. It's more about the
what we have to do is we have to get out and vote. This is the most important election in the history of our country, because if we don't win this election, I really believe you're not going to have Israel anymore, and you're not going to have the United States of America anymore.
Wait.
Israel and the United States have nothing to do with each other except that the donor class wants it to have something to do with each other. And if Israel didn't have the backing of the United States, they wouldn't be doing this shit. They would have been forced to find an actual peace settlement that was actually equitable instead of occupying their land and then bombing the people they're occupying. So I'll say it one more time. When you're occupying someone's land, which is what they're doing, when you're the occupiers and you have all the power, all the weapons, all the control, which is Israel does, you now have a greater moral responsibility than the people being occupied. You actually have a responsibility to take care of those people. Just like if you're running a prison, it's your responsibility, because that's what the Gaza is. It's your responsibility when you're running a prison to make sure the people in your prison have health care, to make sure the people in your prison get fed, to make sure your people in your prison are safe, and to make sure the people in your prison have water. They're doing the exact opposite. That's like bombing a prison, because there's a gang inside that prison that's violent.
that
you paid for.
We paid for a gang in it.
That you paid for, gave them weapons so they could get their weapons, and then you start bombing the whole prison. That's exactly what they're doing, and that's horrible. And and the reason why this is horrible, it's got nothing to do if you like Israel, if you don't like Israel, if you like Palestine, you don't like Palestine. Why this is horrible is because this is going to lead to World War III and a war with Iran. And if Hezbollah gets about, they're already bombing Syria. Why are they bombing Syria? Because they said they attacked our soldiers. Our soldiers that are illegally occupying Syria. Could you imagine if Syrians were occupying Kansas and West Virginia? We would be bombing. What? Wouldn't we go bomb those people?
Jimmy, we bomb them there, so we don't bomb them here.
That's right. could you imagine if Afghanistan and Iranians were occupying California? Occupying it. And then all of a sudden... So that's what we're doing in Syria. We're occupying someone else's country. A third of Syria. Which third do you think that is? It's the third with the oil. And they asked Trump when he was still president, why are you leaving all those troops in Syria? And he said, for the oil. That's what he said. So, okay, let me throw it over to Kurt and Craig. Go ahead.
The turning point's going to be draft time. That's what I'm waiting for, because when World War III starts... You have to draft all these kids, and good luck. I can't wait. That's when everybody's going to suddenly snap, too. Old people don't know anything about this, which is most people.
Yeah.
Most of my friends are like, what? No, I didn't pay attention. Most people I know have not paid attention almost
to this?
To any of it.
None.
Remember, the majority of people don't vote.
That's right.
They tuned out a long time ago. When a draft comes, that's when you're going to see.
And that's what I thought. Yeah. That's why I was excited about RFK Jr.'s campaign, because I thought he was going to get the people who have been turned off to politics turned back on, because he was actually going to fight for them and fight against Big Pharma and fight against censorship and fight against the two-party duopoly. He's not doing any of that. RFK Jr. is all on board for World War III.
Yeah.
In fact, he's even going farther. He's saber rattling with China. He's saber rattling with Iran. He's saber rattling with Venezuela, and he puts them all together. So there's no hope out there, and the only hope is us. You want to say something?
Craig, he sounds like he's got his own axis of evil over here. RFK,
that's right,
and whatnot. And I just want to point out that you're right, Jimmy, when you talk about the area in Syria which we are occupying. We're also occupying the area rich in resources and food and whatnot. We're taking all their energy, all their food. We're taking it out of there. And as they get hit, they're getting hit by Shia militias. They're trying to tie this connection to Iran just because they're Shia. And now people are so ignorant to what's going on, they can say, Hamas and Hezbollah are proxies of Iran. Hamas was never a proxy of Iran back in the day. They're Sunnis. In fact, when they went into, Syria, they were told, hey, let's settle down. The enemy of our enemy is our friend, United States and Israel. That's our biggest problem to deal with. And, just to put a bow on this whole thing when it came to Donald Trump, I think that, he was one of the most pro-Israeli presidents out there. We also have the Abraham Accords, in which he disregarded the Palestinians completely, in addition to moving that embassy to Jerusalem. But when we heard him say that Hezbollah is very smart, they're very smart, we thought maybe there was a crack in the dam.
That's what we thought.
Maybe Netanyahu pissed them off too much, because if you remember, Netanyahu was one of the first to congratulate Biden in the 2020 election.
That's right.
While all that shit was going on, and we said maybe Donald Trump, they pissed him off too much, and his narcissistic self will push back against Israel. Confirmation he's not. He's still the most pro-Israel presidential candidate out there, even more than I think than RFK at this point.
So he was out there ridiculing Benjamin Netanyahu for the attack from Hamas. He said he let it happen, or intimated that he did, and that it was his fault, and that he's a horrible leader. And I thought, oh my God, Donald Trump's going to maybe do the same thing he did in Ukraine and say, I'm going to end the fighting on day one, and we're going to get to a peace deal. That's what I thought he was going to do. That's not what he's going. That's not what he's doing.
Way.
That's what I was hoping he was going to do.
He's on trial. Okay, RFK. He don't want to get killed, so he's going to do what he's supposed to. He's on trial for 30 things, so they can drain all his money to not be able to run. All these guys need a huge amount of money to run.
Yeah, so they need like at least $1 billion.
Yeah, so how are you going to get that?
So RFK needs $1 billion to run, and so that's what he's doing, just like Donald Trump.
Yeah, everybody's got to do that. There's no way to be president, but just the living president of the country, unless you do what they're doing. That should be the most disturbing takeaway from the whole thing.
Is that you have to be beholden to a foreign country and their lobby if you want to become president of the United States. Yeah. There's nobody going against it. The only guy who's going against the
Marjorie Taylor Greene's against funding.
The only person who's going against the funding Israel or the AIPAC lobby is a guy who's only pretending to run for president, Cornel West. Of all the people pretending to run for president, Cornel West is my favorite.
Well, Dr. Shiva pretending to run for president said zero money to Israel today as well, zero funding. So I got to talk about him saying that too. But can I just mention too, Jimmy, that if you in fact are for Israel, you can't be for freedom of speech, because then you have to go against the BDS laws and whatnot, and you got to actually push back against freedom of speech.
Are there standing BDS laws?
Let me tell people what BDS is. BDS is some people like to get spanked, some people like to get, and Israel's against that. And no, BDS is what do they call it? Boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Yes. So it's what we did to South Africa when South Africa was running an apartheid state with white and black people. Everybody in the United States agreed that we would boycott them economically. Artists wouldn't go there and perform.
No Dave Matthews.
Right? They didn't get, who knows? Right? And so Boomtown Rats. Yeah. And so that was, so they did that. They did a economic boycott of them. So people now want to fight back against the apartheid state, which Israel is an apartheid state. There's no denying that it's an apartheid state. There isn't a human rights organization in a world that denies that it's an apartheid state. And so what people did to fight back against that nonviolently is that they would then do economic sanctions against Israel until they got rid of their apartheid state. Well, now they're getting states to pass laws against you doing that economic boycott of Israel, which is called BDS.
So I have to buy a SodaStream.
So soda streams, which are made in the occupied territories.
Like, I'm not buying SodaStream. The next thing I knew, there were laws.
If you try to divest or boycott a product from Israel, that's considered anti-Semitism.
That's right.
So that's why you can never be for freedom of speech if you are for Israel, like the new speaker just talked about. He voted against that.
I mean, like, I thought they were passing. Did they pass the laws and they were on the books? How would you possibly enforce that?
So like they wouldn't let. I remember Abby Martin. Right, she was booked to speak at a college, and they made her stay. In order for her to speak, she had to sign a paper that said she would be against BDS, and she wouldn't do it. And so I think she filed a lawsuit. I don't know what the hell happened with that.
She did file a lawsuit,
and so that's how they get people. Yeah, and I'm sure they I'm sure they're going to do things like you can't have a contract with the government if you're for BDS, stuff like that. That's how you suppress freedom of speech in the United States at the behest of a foreign country that is an apartheid state.
Well, a lot of these right-wingers were complaining a lot about China getting their censorship demands met in America for the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of complaints about, China can censor us? Yeah. Well, don't worry, it ain't just China.
Can I also say too in closing, you can't be for freedom of speech if you're supporting Israel. You also can't be for world peace because it could just spin out of control. Just what we see with RFK, which then you're going into China. If Iran gets attacked by the United States and its proxies and Israel, then that could be World War III. So you can't be for world peace if you're for Israel. You can't be for freedom of speech if you're for Israel. And that's just the bottom line and the crux of things.
Okay, so there's Donald Trump. If he's your hero, he's pushing for World War III and IV right now. Okay. Congratulations. Come see us doing live shows. We're going to be in Levittown, Red Bank, New Jersey, Wilmington, Delaware, Covina, California, Burbank, California, Oxnard, California, Venice, California, Palmdale, California, Omaha, Nebraska, Des Moines, Iowa, Milwaukee, and Lansing, Michigan. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.